Hello again, I'm Stephen Jerome, and I'm going to continue reading from my third novel, The London Year. This is part 68. You might find this a bit interesting. When we first arrived in the States in 1957, my parents were bewildered by the atmosphere of paranoia that hung in the air like the then heavy smog over Los Angeles. Coming from atmospherically pristine New Zealand, my assaulted sinuses often drained unbidden with streams of yellow mucus. That's a little parenthetical moment there. Though the House Un-American Activities Committee hearings had ended a few years prior, there was still a kind of toxic air of suspicion everywhere. My mother had to lower her hemlines. A neighbor asked, "Are you a communist, hun?" after hearing her clear-eyed observations about America. When she joined the PTA at our elementary school, a young mother, hearing my own mother's foreign accent, New Zealand accent, she said, "You're in America now, you're free." To which my mother, a stranger in a strange land, stranger than she had expected, stuck carless in the suburbs, away from her lifelong friends and family, minding two young children while her husband was out beating the bushes, replied truthfully, "I've never felt less free in my life." The woman was insulted, taken completely aback. It wasn't long before my mother quit the PTA altogether. By age 11, even I knew there wasn't liberty and justice for all, and while people got all misty-eyed over the Pledge of Allegiance, I never said it out loud again. America has always had a self-delusional side, preferring the aspirations of that which never was to the less glorious what is. I began to intuit that men, and probably some women, might be more sexually fluid than world culture cared to admit, that sexual attraction was, or could even be, on a gradient scale. Once I turned 18, my parents gave me all the space I required. As I started to be sexually active with both genders, I began to intuit that men, and probably some women, might be more sexually fluid than world culture cared to admit, that sexual attraction was or could even be on a gradient scale. This came as a surprise. What meager sex ed we got in middle school never suggested that there was anything but male-female attraction. For those who were coming of age in secret, there were no reference points at all. No movies, no books that any school might reference for those questioning their identity. I'm not sure the term gay even existed back then, but dehumanizing labels like fag and queer and homo certainly did. Many still grow up, seeing themselves as nothing but a curse word. Being raised, as most everyone, in a heterocentric culture, I discovered that what was normal, in quotes, wasn't necessarily normal for everyone. Latin guys in particular seemed to have a confusing acceptance-denial thing going on that I could only explain as natural urges muddied by Roman Catholic indoctrination. I'll have to skip the next few sentences here. Large swaths of the United States had been instilled with a reading of the Bible so selective that it embedded completely needless guilt, repression, and self-loathing enough to ruin entire lifetimes, to say nothing of giving license to the haters who had it both ways, with God on their side. Much later, visiting Arab countries, I sensed a pernicious and at the same time almost ironic denial of cultural proportions. Romantic friendships, especially in early adolescence, are completely natural. Of course, there would be same-sex attractions when boys and girls, even grown men and women, were so scrupulously separated almost from birth. With whom but their own gender would they have to discover and perhaps explore their sexual awakenings? The virulent homophobia, I surmised, came from adults assuaging their own memories of youthful and perhaps formative affections. How powerful that guilty denial must be to claim God himself justified, even to the present day, punishments like stoning, beheading, and the tossing of people off tall buildings. I'm going to stop there and we'll continue again tomorrow. Thank you for following along.